I think it is extremely in its infancy, the talks. I cannot come up with an example that I've heard about where there's a good kind of join between the two in standards or anything else.
Well, I'd say, Gear, one thing that I'm seeing, though, is at least from companies, is that they're starting to look at automation and IT a lot together, and that's also going to drive some of those type of areas, I think, coming forward. My comment around the standards of interoperability of the things that we're working on is just that being aware of those and being able to how to apply and see if that will work to their businesses, I think, bring the value for that. That's my comment.
No, and I agree. In the owners, like I mentioned, we see now early indications in RFPs where people would like to see the joining of the two, or at least the cooperation between the two, but it's very early. I mean, and some of the ones that are asking for it, there is no solution for it. They're just asking for it, hoping that they say they can find out how BIM and their IT structure can actually work together, and in some meaningful way. You do come into, like you mentioned here, somebody about how they are isolated by firewalls and all that stuff, but that can be solved over time. I mean, it's just, we have to have our head screwed on right when we look at that thing, so that we don't do any compromises in it.
I think the challenge that we all have is back to the owner-operators I said earlier, and I think Patrick said it correctly earlier, is that OpEx and CapEx, the changings of those, once those start to really do more of that from a compensation standpoint, I think you'll start to also see that driving the behavior. I would definitely think the owners need to push more of the vendors to work into that type of interoperability.
And we don't have to just wait for standards, right? I mean, technology has come a long way to integrate, right, various disparate shop floor systems and provide that information back up to the corporate headquarters. And we're getting pushed constantly to provide that visibility. So, you know, the more we can do that, the more technology evolves. We don't have to wait for the standards. Standards, of course, will help and accelerate, but we don't have to wait.
And the emphasis has been people and process?
Yes, exactly.
Which is, as a vendor, I'd love to talk to you later, but but I think that that's true. I think that one of the problems, at least this might be for my industry, would be is the ownership, of course, of trying to have the whole thing, and I think we have to realize that, especially again, I know you're doing a new greenfield project, which is great, but there's a lot of either design standards or people, things that they're comfortable with using. So if they happen to use, you know, vendor A and vendor B and vendor C, we have to work as vendors to recognize where our skills and capabilities are and try not to solve, as someone said, boil the ocean. There are opportunities for us to play together and to mutually collaborate to make that happen. Personally, that's what I feel our company is trying to push versus saying that you have to have an all-in by using our complete solution.
I think one thing you have to do is to keep on pushing. And second thing is, give me the name from Bechtel that didn't want it to happen, so I can kind of figure out where I need to go next if you talk to us. So then I can get my to-do list kind of rearranged a little bit.
I second that. If there's a Bentley person who gave you resistance, we wouldn't know his name. Because we really are trying, and I think most of the vendors are. I mean, we're trying to base things on this standard because, like I said before, it helps us all. And it makes no sense if someone like yourself is willing to drive us to get there faster, why we wouldn't cooperate. There is really should be no resistance on the vendor side for that.
I think that is one of how to take the valuable data that sits in automation systems and get that to be meaningful information and knowledge to management is the challenge. And I think that's why we're saying we have to get the automation people to talk to the IT people, because bringing data to meaningful set of information is not that hard for IT people. We have done that for a couple of decades or so. But we are not invited necessarily into that area yet to kind of take that, because it is being held in a proprietary format often in isolated areas and is not made available. I'm quite encouraged personally that will happen, but it isn't there yet. And I think that is what that convergence that is going to happen between automation and IT will give you, that kind of tool sets, so that you can do such as what you know, you can do analysis of financial stuff through what they call business intelligence systems and so on. You want operational intelligence systems out of the automation systems, and they are not available. And I think that is a challenge that you guys should push for, because I think that is when we can see new efficiency levels and effectiveness levels out of these plants.
I would say at our company, we are looking at taking real-time data from like an OPC gateway. So you get something from a historian or something like that and tying it to engineering data, which would then serve up things that might be important to PSM initiatives or other types of areas like that. So I think there are some things that are there. We just need to basically put it into the analytics or things that you're looking for. And I agree with Gears that there's a lot of data out there. It's just not, we don't need to have it sitting in some repository or something like that. It needs to basically live in the existing place it is so that people will keep it green, but be able to be served up in an interoperable form that they can use it to make the decisions they want to do, whether it's reliability, it's safety, or what other types of things that might be around maintenance systems that you may have, because that information sitting in other stores, procurement systems, whether it's through the SAP ERP system or Oracle or something like that. So there is capabilities of doing that. I think, again, owners need to push some of the vendors out there, and we definitely can bring that information in, and we understand those.
And from our side, we're definitely doing that. We have, you know, an initiative called the Perfect Plant, and part of the goals and objectives around Perfect Plant is actually to bring that data up and then use the analytics tools to present that to the users in the format that they want and can access.
We have example systems of this being done, but it's a state of where the owner-operators pulled it together. And I think in the state of maturity of deciding who's responsible for doing those analytics. So right, what we find now is, well, there's that data, and maybe this time we're the ones doing the analytics. Maybe the next time it's some separate thing, or maybe it's the device itself should be doing those analytics. So for the information that we're generating, we've taken the stand that we should do at least some level of filtering to serve it up, so it's not just raw. So it's already, you know, in a state that you can stick it as part of a KPI dashboard in SharePoint or something. And I think that we need to get, I think maturity's been here a lot. We need to get a consensus of who's responsible for those things to do it. Because I think that, you know, when you have the raw data, there is a certain responsibility of who's going to use this. You're not going to know all the cases, but if you're just collecting it, you're not really doing that. You're not being a good enterprise citizen by just saying, "Oh, here's a terabyte of data. You figure out how to interpret it."
You are exactly right. If our CTO was here, he would tell you that that's on his agenda. It's one of the top items that we're investing in. Is actually how do you make applications more usable and more intuitive? Because the people barrier of learning how to master those is a bigger issue than having the next new feature. You're exactly right.
I don't want to just up one, but I can tell you we have one internally application. Internally developed application where it's a 10-100. We're spending 100% on 10% of the users and nothing on the other 90%, and the 90% have to go to the 10% to get the information they want in it, and that is our worst example. And we are addressing that one now where we say, you know, hey, wait a moment, a little investment on the 90 could go a long way.
I say you're exactly right, and this past year we actually reorganized. And we have the group I'm in, our applications have nothing to do with the technical guys. It was just for that reason, because we just couldn't disassociate all the feedback we're getting from our engineers, who tend to be a lot more vocal than the hourly people who tend to be on the floor. So we just did directly, we're just going to reorganize around our user base.
I think the challenge the gentleman put it to us all, though, is that they don't have to be an expert in my software or your software or anyone else's software. I think the challenge is that it lives with the people where they know, but they want the information, the data, to be an information to them in a form that they can then query and go against. So they don't need to be an AVEVA expert on our 3D modeling, or they want to basically be, if you're in a process controls environment, you want to be able to pull some information from the engineering data source, not be able to fire up my tool to do that. That's kind of where I think that question's coming, if there's a further clarification. But I think that's what we have to strive to. That's why I go back to this interoperability statement, is that it doesn't have to reside in one place. It should be basically all over, and that individual should be empowered to get where he gets, whether it's in any a framework. That way it becomes more around the people in the process than it does the technology.
I agree 100%, and that's where we have to go back to our customers ourselves. So if the issue is you can't get the data you want to see on the portal you've chosen, go back. It's not that portal vendor's fault. It's not the application you're in. It's where's the data coming from, and is that source of that data, are they being a good enterprise citizen and making it available in a format that the rest of us can use?
And I would also just say that in terms of the user interface, one of the things we've done is we've taken a group specifically focused on dashboards and some simple tools that you can use to present the data, maybe manipulate it a little bit, but not to the extent that it's a full-blown application. So I think you're seeing, and I'm hearing on the panel as well, that there's a recognition, at least to move in that direction, that there is the need out there to go back to the 80% of the users that just view the data. So I think that we will get there. There was also a gentleman who mentioned the iPad and other technology. I think there's a convergence of things happening right now. They have a proliferation of analytics, regardless of who's offering it or what company is offering the analytics. But you also have some very innovative things that are happening on the device level, whether it's the iPad or the iPhone or whatever smart device. But that combination could become very powerful in the very near future.